Tonight then finds us again in the book of Judges for a second time. The whole plan of Judges and Ruth will be 10 lessons. And so tonight we're in the second. We had last time our introduction, the setting, and the downward moral spiral of the people of Israel in the promised land as Joshua had led them in, and then they did not complete their task of fully taking the land and removing the Canaanites. And effectively, over time, God's people are going to become like the Canaanites. The people they were to remove because of their immorality and under the judgment of God, they did not entirely remove. They were corrupted by them, often quite willingly, of course, but they become like the people that they were to have removed. Tonight we see the need of judges arise. And again, with judges, think about some warrior leaders more so than people sitting around like judges of the American or British system, black robes and a great deal of decorum and maybe a horsehair wig. It's not that. It's leaders in the field, but who also, because of their moral authority, although it's going to eventually become immoral authority, they were, some of them those who gave guidance and leadership to the people, almost like kings. But anyway, these leaders that God raised up, these judges, will lead. And tonight we have the very first ones, and that's what we've entitled here our lesson. And let me call that up. So we'll also cover the book of Ruth with this. It's a story that takes place in the same time. But we have our first judges. And tonight we'll call them pretty good judges. We don't find any fault with these judges. We don't have a lot of detail about all of these judges, these first ones, Othniel, Ehud, Shamgar, we have almost no knowledge of except one verse about his work. And then we have something about Deborah and the leadership of the people. We start to see some moral weakness and failure here in the book of Judges in the time of Deborah, but it's not Deborah the judge who's the problem. It's those who are with her and those who should have taken the lead who did not. But these are pretty good judges. They get on the scene, they do their job, and they go away. And so there's not that much of a story to tell them, and often it's in the story. The longer the story about the judge, oftentimes it seems the worse that things are. So we're going to take it as a pretty good indication that all is well, that we don't know that much. And so this is truly a case of really no details are good news. So having no news about this, no news is good news. And so here's our first setting. Again, just like chapters 1 and 2 set for us, the people doing what was wrong in the eyes of God. We'll see it twice here in chapter 3 and once more in chapter 4. It says that the sons of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord. And so the first part is them becoming like the Canaanites that they were to dispossess. Chapter 3, verse 1, beginning. Now, these are the nations that the Lord left to test Israel by them. That is, all who had not experienced any wars in Canaan, in order that the generations of the sons of Israel might be taught war, those who had not experienced it formerly. And so God has left the Canaanites there for his own purpose. One of the purposes is so that those of Israel might learn war. These people in their land is kind of to be their war college and to strengthen them by their opposition to them. But instead of being strengthened in their opposition to these, they grow lax morally. And these folks become a great stumbling block for Israel. And so verse 3, the nations are the 5 lords of the Philistines, and boy, won't we know a bunch of them, for it's all over. And all the Canaanites and the Sidonians and the Hivites who lived in Mount Hermon, from Mount Baal Hermon as far as Labo Hamath. They were for the testing of Israel, to find out if they would obey the commandments of the Lord. Well, they did not, which he had commanded their fathers throughout Moses. And so each generation was to learn to stand on its own feet, to know war, and to know obedience. And they did not learn the lessons of war well. They keep losing. And they did not learn the lessons of obedience, and they keep stumbling. And so the sons of Israel lived among the Canaanites. So they live among them, and they become like them, rather than force united against them. They lived among the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites. And contrary directly to what was said in the book of Deuteronomy, that they were not to intermarry with them, they took their daughters for themselves as wives, and gave their daughters to their sons, and served their gods. The sons of Israel did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, and they forgot the Lord their God, and served the Baals and the Ashtoreth. So this is a summary of what all's going on in the book of Judges. This is almost the third time. Chapter 1, 2, and 3 all have these moral summaries of how these people are failing at the most basic things. You know, when you have violations of the first commandment, have no other God. Violation of the second commandment, idolatry. Violation of all kinds of instructions of God, right? From the book of Exodus, directly. Don't make covenant with the inhabitants of the land, lest you play the harlot with their gods and sacrifice to their gods. And someone invites you to eat of his sacrifice, and you take some of his daughters for your sons, and your daughters play the harlot with their gods, and cause your sons to play the harlot with their gods. That's Exodus 34, 15, and 16. And they violate this repeatedly. So now comes the anger of God, right? They are under a physical covenant. There are direct blessings of obedience, and there are direct physical consequences of lack of peace and lack of prosperity in disobedience, and they've fallen on the wrong side of the blessings and the curses. So verse 8, then the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, and so that he sold them into the hands of Cushan Rishathaim, if I said that right, king of Mesopotamia. And the sons of Israel served Cushan Rishathaim for 8 years. Well, as things go, this is going to be a relatively short time of oppression. But in verse 9, when the sons of Israel cried to the Lord raised up a deliverer. And we wonder, even at 8 years, what took them so long? Well, they cried to the Lord. He raised up a deliverer for the sons of Israel to deliver them. Othniel, the son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother. Well, there's 3 times that this fella is mentioned in Scripture, and every time it mentions him, it brings up the fact that he is Caleb's. He's the son of Caleb's younger brother. So of the 2 faithful spies who went in to take to spy out the land before the wilderness wandering, Joshua and Caleb, this fella is the son of Caleb's younger brother. So he is Caleb's nephew. And that also just tells us, just one generation removed from the wilderness, how early it was that this occurred in their time in the promised land. One generation after they come to the land, the faithful spy's nephew is brought up as a deliverer. So this verse 10, the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he judged Israel. When he went out to war, the Lord gave Cushan Rishathaim, king of Mesopotamia, into his hand, so he prevailed over Cushan Rishathaim. And I'm glad his name no longer appears in the text. After that, then the land had rest for 40 years, and Othniel, son of Kenaz, died. So we have 8 years of oppression, we have a judge raised up, and we have 40 years of peace. And that's all we have about Othniel. We know his people. We know his effectiveness. We know the good result that God was so good to them through him. And this is going to set the pattern, right? Except what we'll find is, as we go, the conformity to the world of the Canaanites will grow. The times and places of oppression will grow and become longer, and the periods of peace following will often be shorter. And so after Othniel, we have Ehud. Now we have a little bit more detail about the work of Ehud in delivering the people from the Moabites. Verse 12. Now the sons of Israel again did evil in the sight of the Lord. So the Lord strengthened Eglon, king of Moab, against Israel. Notice how often God is the one. God is the one raising the judges. God is the one raising the enemy. God is the one strengthening the enemy. God is active in the affairs of this nation of his people. We don't have today prophets to tell us how God is active among the nations. I trust that he is, but we don't have insight into exactly what he's doing or why. I think we can make some faithful suppositions of how he's caring for his people in some occasions, but we don't have anything quite like this. So God strengthened up Eglon against Israel because, again, they had done evil in the sight of the Lord. And when he gathered to himself the sons of Ammon and Amalek, enemies of the future for sure as well, he went and defeated Israel, and they possessed the city of the palm trees. The sons of Israel served Eglon, the king of Moab, 18 years. So 8 years the first time, 18 years this time. But when the sons of Israel cried to the Lord, and again, what took them so long? 18 years. The Lord raised up a deliverer for them, Ehud, the son of Gera the Benjamite, a left-handed man. Well, that's going to become a salient fact, an important fact in the story. And the sons of Israel sent tribute by him to Eglon, the king of Moab. Ehud made for himself a sword which had two edges, a cubit in length, so 18-inch, basically two-edged sword, one that would be concealable, just long enough, just short enough to be concealable. And so he bound it to his right thigh under his cloak. And so it's bound on his right under his clothes. So it's a concealed weapon coming from the direction one would likely not expect. He presented the tribute to Eglon, king of Moab. Now, Eglon, scriptures don't pull any punches. Eglon was a very fat man. All right. And it came about when he had finished presenting his tribute, he sent away the people who had carried the tribute. But he himself turned back from the idols which were at Gilgal and said, I have a secret message for you, O king. And he said to him, keep silence. Okay, we'll keep this amongst ourselves. And all who attended him left. And Ehud came to him while he was sitting alone in the cool roof chamber. Well, if you're a fat guy, you like to find a cool spot. And so Ehud said, I have a message from God for you. Yeah, I got a secret. It's a secret message from God. And he arose from his seat. Ehud stretched out his left hand and took the sword from his right thigh and thrust it into his belly. The handle also went in after the blade, and the fat closed over the blade, for he did not draw out the sword from his belly, and the refuge came out. So he stabs him the whole length of the sword, right up to the hilt, right into his fat gut, and the contents of his belly are spilling out. And then Ehud went out to the vestibule, and he shut the doors of the roof chamber behind him, and he locked them. And when he had gone out, his servants came and looked, and behold, the doors of the roof chamber were locked. And they said, well, he's only relieving himself in the cool room. So I guess he's sitting on his chamber pot in there. And maybe with the big fat guy, there was sometimes some issues, and maybe it took him a while to accomplish that. And so in the meantime, while they don't want to interrupt the boss, Ehud gets a chance to make the getaway. They waited until they became anxious, but behold, he did not open the doors of the roof chamber. Therefore they took the key and opened them, and behold, their master had fallen to the floor dead. Now Ehud escaped while they were delaying, and he passed by the idols and escaped to Serah. And it came about when he had arrived that he blew the trumpet in the hill country of Ephraim, and the sons of Israel went down with him from the hill country, and he was in front of them, and he said, "Pursue them, for the Lord has given your enemies, the Moabites, into your hands." And they went down after him and seized the fords of the Jordan opposite Moab, and did not allow anyone to cross. And so while they are leaderless and in a bit of disarray, as they are trying to withdraw, they've seized the routes of withdrawal, and they are slaughtering them as they come down. So they struck down at that time about 10,000 Moabites, all robust and valiant men, and no one escaped. So Moab was subdued that day under the hand of Israel, and the land was undisturbed for 80 years. Well, there's a good long period of peace in that part of the country. You get rid of 10,000 of the enemy, it takes a while to build their strength back up. But also just think about how these people are just like mice, or cockroaches, just swarming the land, that there's 10,000 of them. And as each one finds out that it's turning against them, they all try to flee home, maybe with some of the spoil, or maybe just, with their own lives. But the retreat back home is already covered. And so great success there by Othniel. Again, we know nothing more about his judging of the people. And again, in this we regard no news as good news because he wasn't messing it up. Generally, the accounts that will come of later times after the deliverance by the judge is how they messed it up. So none of that there. So again, the pretty good judges. All right, then we have the one more quickly. We have Shamgar, of whom we know the absolute very least. After him came Shamgar, the son of Anath, who struck down 600 Philistines with an ox goad, and he also saved Israel. So he doesn't even have a proper weapon. He just uses an ox goad, but he still, over time, or maybe at one big event, he killed 600 Philistines. So this is a different part of the country. As we talked about in the introduction, some of these things of Judges are not quite linear. Not one thing happened, then the other began and happened and finished, but some of these would have been going on at the same time. And so in one part of the country, Othniel, on that side, on the west side, we've got Shamgar, we've got different enemies, but we've got the same problems. We've got people oppressing Israel. Okay, so Shamgar does his job, and now he's quickly off the scene. And now we have two chapters. So the first judge, of whom we have some lengthy narrative, we have Deborah. And with Deborah, the man Barak, who was the leader of the people that she was to have been helping with and giving direction to, and a man, as we know, who does not fully embrace the responsibilities that God had given him. So chapter 4 and 5, we have Deborah and Barak. And what we have is we have the history in chapter 4, and then we have it told again in song in chapter 5. And so we get a lot of repeat because we have the narrative section, and then we have the song of celebration section. And both of these cover a decent bit of the same ground. All right, so oppression again, that's the common refrain in Judges. Again, the sons of Israel, verse 1, did evil in the sight of the Lord after Ehud died. And so back in the same spot where Ehud was, now we get them returning back to the Canaanitish pagan ways. And so the Lord sold them. Again, the Lord very active both in the blessing and the cursing here. There's no mistake who our central actor is in these things. The Lord sold them into the hand of Jabin, king of Canaan, who reigned in Hazor. And the commander of his armies was Sisera. who lived in Harosheth Haggayim. And again, glad that name doesn't come up that much. And the sons of Israel cried to the Lord, for he had 900 iron chariots, and he oppressed the sons of Israel for 20 years. So again, lengthy time of oppression. And this guy has a great amount of military strength, 900 iron chariots. And so these are faster than you. And the people on them, with a driver and an archer or a driver and a swordsman or two, these guys are stronger than you. And basically, this is the ancient equivalent of armor. These are armored vehicles, armored fighting platforms, the ancient equivalent of tanks. And how would you fight against them? And so they were ruling. Well, now Deborah is raised up in verse 4. Now Deborah, a prophetess, the wife of Lapidoth, was judging Israel at that time. So here's our one and only woman judge, and she is a prophetess. She delivers God's message, and she gives God's wisdom to the people. And it says she used to sit under the palm tree of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim. And the sons of Israel came up to her for judgment. And so she was so tied to this location that the tree becomes Deborah's tree, the tree of Deborah, sort of like down in Texas. In Austin, they got Treaty Oak, where people remember things that were done under that tree. All right, so there, under her tree, outside at the edge of her town, people have been coming to her for wisdom and for God's guidance. And so she sent and she summoned, verse 6, Barak, the son of Abinoam, from Kadesh Naphtali, and said to him, behold, the Lord, the God of Israel, has commanded. Go and march to Mount Tabor, and take with you 10,000 men from the sons of Naphtali and from the sons of Zebulun. So up from the north. Get your army from these two tribes of the north. Get 10,000. And again, the Lord has commanded. This is the commandment of God. And his hesitancy to follow the command of God, his lack of faith in that, is going to be a major part of the story. I will draw out for you Sisera, the commander of Jabin's army, with his chariots and his many troops, to the river Kishon, and I will give them into your hand. So this is where you get your troops. This is how many troops you go to this spot, and I'm going to bring out this great army, and I will put them in your hand. Very clear instructions. But it's, again, clear instruction to go fight a massive army with armor. And Barak says, well, if you will go with me, then I will go. I'll go if you will. But if you do not go with me, I will not go. Well, that was not part of the instruction of God. He's putting conditions on the following of God. Do you ever notice anybody who would do that? Right? Well, you know what God wants you to do. And it's like, well, yeah, but, or only if, or in some other limiting condition, will you do that, or will somebody do that thing? And so she says, well, I will surely go with you. Yeah, okay, I'll go. Nevertheless, the honor shall not be yours on the journey that you're about to take. Well, you would think you're the head of an army that defeats this armored column with all its support troops that have been oppressing you for years. You would think that would be an honorable thing. But she says, you're not going to get the honor of the victory. It will not be your name that people sing in the songs of victory, as it turns out. So she says instead that the Lord will sell Sisera into the hands of a woman. So a woman is going to get the credit for the victory. Now, you think, how in the world we're going to go face an armored column and 900 chariots and all the accompanying ground forces? How in the world is a woman going to get credit for this victory? Well, we'll see, of course, how it is, because God likes to do things like that, especially when folks have doubt in carrying out what he says. So Then Deborah arose, verse 9, and she went with Barak to Kadesh. Barak called Zebulun and Naphtali together in Kadesh as he was instructed, and 10,000 men, as instructed, went up with him, and Deborah also went out with him. Now Heber the Kenite had separated himself from the Kenites, from the sons of Horeb, the father-in-law of Moses, and he had pitched his tent as far away as the oak in Zamarin, which is near Kadesh. All right, so now we've got the family of Heber out there. And he's not with his people. He's out there for whatever cause, living out their way by himself. Then they told Sisera that Barak, the son of Aboam, had gone up to Mount Tabor. And Sisera called together his chariots and 900 iron chariots and all the people who were with him from Harosheth Ahagim to the river Kishon. So just like God said, I'm going to bring them all out. So they heard there's an army out there, and they rush out there with what they are sure are superior forces, and they are going to smack these people down, except that's not what happened. So Deborah says to Barak, "Arise, for this is the day which the Lord has given Sisera into your hands. Behold, the Lord has gone out before you." So Barak went down from Mount Tabor with 10,000 men following him. So again, they come off the mountain and they're supposed to go down to the river where this army has been gathered, for God has promised the victory, and the Lord routed Sisera. So again, yes, there is the 10,000 men of Zebulun and Naphtali with Barak, but the victory is the Lord's. And the book of Judges is quite clear about that. The Lord routed them, all his chariots and all his army with the edge of the sword before Barak, and Sisera alighted from his chariot and fled away on foot. So the commanding general has to abandon the chariot and he flees on foot. A little insight as to what happens in chapter 5 in the song of Deborah. We have this from chapter 5. We'll read it in a moment, but we'll go ahead and say it now. Chapter 5:21, the torrent of Kishon swept them away. The ancient torrent, the torrent of Kishon. O my soul, march on with strength. And so a torrent came, it says, and took them away. And also it'll describe the stars and the clouds fighting against them. What appears that happens is that it rained. It rained on one of those hills or mountainsides, and the water came down and flooded the area of the river Kishon, and that's where the chariots were. Well, what happens when you try to drive your heavy chariot down through the flooded plain around the river? Well, apparently their chariots probably got stuck. And what do you call a stuck chariot? It's a target. And so those men and their heavy equipment got stranded and stuck, and the people of Israel came and fell upon them, and they routed them, and the leader of the army, the leader had to flee away on foot. Well, he, after his exhausted run, thinks he's found a place of safety, but this is when God fulfills his promise through Deborah that the glory of the battle will go to a woman. So verse 17 again, Sisera fled away on foot to the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite. You know, sometimes you just want to get away from everything and everybody and just live in a tent out in the plains. And lo and behold, an enemy general shows up on your doorstep, all tired and hungry, and life comes to you. Well, that's what happened. Life came to them and their isolated tent. For there was peace between Jabin, the king of Hazor, and the house of Heber the Kenite. And Jael went out to meet Sisera, and she said to him, "Turn aside, my master, turn aside to me. Do not be afraid." He maybe should have been a little afraid. And he turned aside into her tent, and she covered him with a rug. So he says to her, "Please give me a little water to drink, for I am thirsty." She opened a bottle of milk and gave him a drink, and then she covered him. And so here, have a drink, have a lie down, take a rest, permanent rest, but have a rest, it'll all be okay. Well, it'll be okay for the people of God. So he said to her, "Stand in the doorway of the tent, and it shall be if anyone comes and inquires of you, and says, is anyone here that you will say no? So don't tell anybody I'm here. But Jael, Heber's wife, took a tent peg and seized a hammer in her hand and went secretly to him and drove the peg into his temple. And it went through into the ground, for he was asleep and exhausted, so he died. All right, well, there is his inglorious end, sleeping and taking a rest after his panicked flight away from his army. And so the cruel oppressor is now dead. And as far, verse 22, and behold, as Barak pursued Sisera, Jael came out to meet him and said, come, and I will show you the man whom you are seeking. And he entered with her, and behold, Sisera was lying dead with a tent peg in his temple. I guess so. So there comes now the glory of victory. So again, verse 23, it's who's the actor? So God subdued on that day Jabin, the king of Canaan, before the sons of Israel. The hand of the sons of Israel pressed heavier and heavier upon Jabin, the king of Canaan, until they had destroyed Jabin, the king of Canaan. So this was the opening battle, but the opening battle's a rout. They lose their 900 chariots, and I'm sure very much the vast majority of that army, and now weakened, the children of Israel are able to conquer him. And so again, strength is found, as the New Testament, strength in weakness, strength in this woman. She's the one given the credit, and she's the one that they will sing about. So in chapter 5, we have a repeat of this story. A repeat of the story in a different form. Instead of a narrative form, we have it in a poetic form. We have it in the form of a song. And of course, you think about our scriptures, how important are the songs? This is a significant song for several reasons. It's, I think, just the third long form bit of poetry in the Bible. The first, I think, is Exodus 15, the song where the horse and rider are thrown into the sea, is the song that the people sang as they crossed the Red Sea and the Egyptians were destroyed. In Deuteronomy 32, there was the song of Moses going through what God had done for the people. And now we have this third one, by no means the last at all, but this song of Deborah. The other thing is, it's not just it's an early long song, but this is a highly apocalyptic song. We even get the Hill of Megiddo, the Armageddon, which means Hill of Megiddo, Armageddon. This is a place of decision where God fights against his enemies. And this is the first time that Armageddon comes up, the Hill of Megiddo. And we'll have descriptions of the battle as the stars and the clouds are fighting against Sisera. Now, with the cloud part, it's we think it's the rain that hindered them so much. But how do we interpret the stars are fighting? But we see that language, in Revelation probably most famously, but other places. So this is the way that God describes, in the book of God describes, battles of nation against nation and judgment and battles that are judgments of God. And so this will be instructive pointers for us in interpreting biblical language, because we have the historic event, and then we have in poetic description, including apocalyptic type details, which means similar to the symbols of Revelation, is what I mean by apocalyptic. We have the poetic and apocalyptic description of the historical event, and we have them just in back-to-back chapters. So we don't have to make a lot of guessing as to how these figures are used and applied in the Song of Deborah. All right, so Song of Deborah, and we start with, like the song should, we start with praise to God. And so then Deborah and Barak, the son of Boam, sang a song that day, saying, that the leaders led in Israel, that the people volunteered, blessed the Lord. All right, good job. We got people who are leading, and we got people who are volunteering to serve. And boy, doesn't the work of God go well when we do that, right? We have the leaders show up to lead, and we have the people volunteering to serve. So hear, O kings, and give ear, O rulers, to the Lord. I will sing. I will sing praise to the Lord, the God of Israel. Lord, when you went out from Seir, when you marched from the field of Edom, the earth quaked and the heavens also dripped. Even the clouds dripped water. I mentioned the flood later in verse 21. The mountains quaked at the presence of the Lord, like at Sinai. This Sinai, at the presence of the Lord, the God of Israel. So this is like a new Sinai. This is a new revelation of God, a revelation of God and his power and God and his judgment. Not, again, the revelation of the law. There's no new law given here, but there is a reaffirmation of the power of God and his care for his people. And so we find that they go from desolation to renewal. Again, the oppression that is so common in the book of Judges, and the rescue, which is also the hallmark of the book. So in the days of Shamgar, the son of Anath, in the days of Jael, the highways were deserted. The travelers went by roundabout ways. It was too dangerous to be there. The peasantry ceased. They ceased in Israel. The poor people were just destroyed. The travelers went roundabout ways. Verse 7, the peasantry ceased. They ceased in Israel until I, Deborah, arose, until I rose a mother in Israel. New gods were chosen. That doesn't sound good. Then war was in the gates. Yeah, consequence of unfaithfulness. Not a shield or a spear was seen among 40,000 in Israel. Well, if you want to oppress a people, disarm them, right? All right, so verse 9, my heart goes out to the commanders of Israel, the volunteers among the people. Bless the Lord. You who ride on white donkeys, you who sit on rich carpets. So here is a chastisement of the wealthy and the oppressors. You who travel on the road, sing as the sound of those who divide the flocks among the watering places. There they shall recount the righteous deeds of the Lord, the righteous deeds for his peasantry in Israel. Then the people of the Lord went down to the gates. And so the people are coming back. The people are coming to God. So as you're doing about your daily work, praise God. And so awake, awake, Deborah, awake, awake, sing a song. Arise, Barak, and take away your captives, O son of Abinon. Then survivors came down to the nobles. The people of the Lord came down to me as warriors. And so we came to lead. We were awakened. They called to us awake. We came and awakened them. We were awake. We called and awakened them. We mustered up an army. And then there's a bit of a roll call about which groups came and which groups didn't. From Ephraim, those whose root is in Amalek came down. Following you, Benjamin, with your people. From Machir, commanders came down. And from Zebulun, those who wield the staff of office. And the princes of Issachar were with Deborah. As was Issachar, so was Barak. Into the valley they rushed at his heels. Among the divisions of Reuben, there were great resolves of heart. So they rushed down into the valleys where those chariots were getting stuck, and they came and attacked them. Why do you sit among the sheepfolds to hear the piping for the flocks? Among the divisions of Reuben, there was great searching of heart. Gilead remained across the Jordan, and why did Dan stay in ships? Asher sat at the seashore and remained by its landings. So there's the groups that didn't show. They thought about it, and some of them just went about their business, and some didn't show up. Zebulun, though, Zebulun was a people who despised their lives even to death, and Naphtali also on the high places of the field. So there's the ones who showed up. There's the ones who rushed into danger, not heeding their own lives. So now we have the battle. The kings came and fought. Then fought the kings of Canaan at Tanakh, near the waters of Megiddo. There's Megiddo, right? The hill of Megiddo, or Armageddon, so famous. They took no plunder in silver. The stars fought from heaven. From their courses they fought against Sisera. So even the stars are described as fighting against Sisera. This is, nature and creation has turned against the enemy of God because God is opposed to them. Doesn't appear that this battle was at night. It doesn't appear that in any way in the description that the stars were involved, except as representative of creation. Think about that when we see things like the stars and heavenly bodies fighting in the wars in future descriptions in such language. All right, so the torrent of Kishon swept them away. The ancient torrent, the torrent of Kishon. So this again, down in the river, because they rushed off the mountain down the valley. It does appear that that a flood down there caused these chariots great deal of difficulty, this torrent that came. So, O my soul, march on with strength. Then the horses' hooves beat from the dashing of his valiant steeds. So they came out with their horses, but they were not successful. Verse 23, curse Meroz, said the angel of the Lord. Utterly curse its inhabitants, because they did not come to help to the help of the Lord, to the help of the Lord against the warriors. So this one village, Meroz, which we don't know that much about, but they're under severe curse from the angel of the Lord, which is that special messenger of Jehovah. God himself is pronouncing a curse on them. This must have been a nearby village that didn't help when they could have and would have been a help, because there was others before who didn't come. But they're not under a curse. It's noted they didn't help, but they weren't directly like this, given some kind of an utter curse, utterly curse its inhabitants. So when God is on the march, get on the march and go with God. And then we have the victory. We have the households contrasted, the glory to the house of the woman Jael, and the anxiety of the house and of the women where Sisera is from. So here's the glory that does not go to Barak, but goes to Jael. Verse 24, most blessed of women is Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite. Most blessed is she of the women in the tent. He asked for water, and she gave him milk. In a magnificent bowl, she brought him curd, so she fed him as well. She reached out her hand for a tent peg, her right hand for a workman's hammer. Then she struck Sisera. She smashed his head. And she shuddered and pierced his temple. Between her feet he bowed. He fell, he lay. Between her feet he bowed, he fell. When he bowed, there he fell dead. And so, what a line to praise God with, and to have God made as a holy remembrance of this thing, this little ditty. Between her feet he bowed, he fell, he lay. Between her feet he bowed, he fell. When he bowed, there he fell dead. And so, thus to the enemies of God, to those who oppressed his people when God comes for him in judgment. Now, this is the praise to that house, and he's now bowed and dead, but at the house he came from, out of the window she looked and lamented, the mother of Sisera through the lattice. So back home, his mom's wonder why he's taking so long to get back. So she's looking out the window. Why does his chariot delay in coming? Why do the hoofbeats of his chariot tarry? So I should see his chariot. I should hear his horses. Why is he not back? Well, sorry, lady. We know where he's at, and he ain't coming home no more. So, verse 29, her wise princesses would answer her. Indeed, she repeats the words to herself. Are they not finding? Are they not dividing the spoil? A maiden, 2 maidens for every warrior. To Sisera, a spoil of dyed work, a spoil of dyed work embroidered, dyed work of double embroidery on the neck of the spoiler. So she's going to be comforted by people saying, oh, he's just got so much booty to carry home. He's got so much loot to bring. Just imagine the stuff he's loading up his chariot, but that's not it. That's not it. And so the house of the people of God is joy and victory, and the house of these wicked people, look, he's off getting maidens. He's off capturing slaves. He's off bringing stuff home. No, his oppression has come to an end by the hand of God. Thus let all your enemies perish, O Lord. As we conclude, but let those who love him be like the rising of the sun in its might. And so he had worldly glory and worldly attainment. Who knows how big a harem he built, how many people he carted off to the slave markets, how many people he mistreated. And so he perished. He perished with a tent stake in his temple. But the people of God, they are now again restored. They are rising like the sun in its might. It's like the Proverbs say, the path of the righteous is like the light of dawn that shines brighter and brighter until the full day. And so here are the people of God for when they were doing the things they ought as the people of God. God was causing them to shine bright, and we see the glory of God shining bright in this song, even if it is in temporal judgment and temporal consequence and a bit of a bloody mess, honestly. But it's the setting of wrongs right by God. And so the 5th chapter ends, and the land was undisturbed for 40 years. So again, we're seeing long periods of peace often after the work of these good judges. The thing about it is, though, as things go now in the book of Judges, this is about as good as it gets. It's going to get worse and darker with each judge that comes. And so that's the study that we have before us in this part of the revelation of God. And pray that you join us next time as we look to Gideon, one of the most famous of the stories, but also we see the weakness setting in now, not just among the people, but among the judges. Well, that'll be next time, Lord willing, Gideon in the book of Judges.